Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis, and this show is the 79th segment in this series on the network of global corporate control. Thanks to Mo Jackson, producer and director, Cruchet Starnes on audio, and Dolores Harris, our floor director. Today's segment is an update and is pre-recorded. I've been hearing from my contacts in Canada, Greece, the United Kingdom, and Japan that are all breaking loose from the network of global corporate control, and each of us in our own way. I'm sitting in the middle of the international financial system and trying to keep us from landing in World War III. So far, so good. I got a roadmap from the National War College in the U.S. Department of Defense in 2004 on how to stay out of World War III. The power transition model uses game theory to simulate how coalitions form. It's 90 to 95% accurate. The power transition model has been predicting ever since Elaine Colville, a Scottish whistleblower who used to work at the World Bank, and I got our statements up on the UK Parliament website, which I did 3 times between 2011 and 2013, and Elaine Colville did in 2013, which was that a coalition for the rule of law was in charge. On October 31st, 2016, I sent a message to the German and Japanese military attachés in Washington, telling them about how the U.S. military is using the monetary gold reserves to fulfill our treaty commitments to their defense. And the tweet said, General Joseph Dunford Jr.'s treason. You notice how General Joseph Dunford Jr. has not said a single word to defend himself. How could he? He was caught red-handed. The gold reserves I'm talking about are the same reserves that John F. Kennedy accessed in the Green-Hilton Agreement 8 days before he was assassinated, and which Ronald Reagan accessed before John Hinckley shot him. How do we know that Ronald Reagan accessed the global debt facility? One piece of evidence is the Grace Commission study, which Ronald Reagan commissioned. This study showed that all of our tax dollars are going to pay the Federal Reserve interest on bogus country debt. Why do I say that country debt is bogus? It's because the banks that are charging us interest really owe us more money than we owe them. I will show you in a clip at the end of this segment one document that was signed by José Rizal, who was the Superior General of the Jesuits at the end of World War II. You need to study this document before you invest in scams. The first thing that people who are trying to discredit me say is that I do not have any documents. Just look at the document I'm showing you at the end of the clip and see for yourself what is true and what is false. The screenshots I'm going to show you are going to take up half of this segment. And so let's start with, or shall we go a little bit further? I'm showing you the clip in the teleprompter, but let me tape until we'll need to cut for the clip. This show is going to air during the bogus elections in the United States. The elections are bogus because the Electoral College is not authorized since the Constitution of 1789 has been suspended by Congress. And I have a link showing you a Senate report where that state of emergency is declared, suspending the Constitution. Why am I talking about Germany and Japan? It's because the power transition model told me that Germany was a swing vote in keeping us out of World War III, and because Japan is depending on the United States military to defend them against China. So for the balance of this show, I'm going to update you with reports from some journalists and others that I've been working with. And here's a letter about the United Kingdom that came to me from Paul Jenkinson. Dear Karen, I think the United Kingdom is definitely changing. Firstly, the elites allowed a fair Brexit vote. Many changes within the government have happened under Theresa May's leadership. Agreed, there needs to be more cleansing. The Bilderberg BBC chairwoman was another change. May has been restraining Nicola Sturgeon's attempts to break Scotland away to join the EU, as if that will save the ECB negative interest rate flat bankrupt counties group. May used to work at the Bank of England and has plenty of experience of intelligence agencies in her role as Home Secretary. William Hague is and was a committee of 300 member. I mention this since they're ending QE, that's quantitative easing, and possibly the reason Goodmanham Saka Mark Carney is quitting. The media have given May some stick about the delay of Brexit, but one can see huge amounts of effort is being expended during difficult negotiations with the EU network of global corporate control political elites. Just looking at their expression and demeanor shows they know the game is up. I think the hard Brexit talk is a way the public will accept a warning of fundamental changes without going into the detail you provide. I suspect the British elites want to reduce risk of an emotional public reaction. They seem to be upsetting the network of global corporate control spoiler Max Kaiser, since he is not getting fulfillment of his apocalyptic prophecies. I hope these changes are being adequately translated to the United States elites. Kind regards, Paul Jenkinson. And the Greek people have actually heard in their mainstream media newspapers about the global debt facility and the fact that country debt is a scam. It was John Contouris who broke the story, and I've given you a link in the teleprompter which shows a screenshot from one of the newspapers that ran the story. What's going on right now in Greece is that the bankers are trying to squeeze every nickel and dime they can out of the Greek people and get all of their Greek assets signed over to them. These assets are going right back to the people in the global currency reset. We're going to have to work out how to transition peacefully. And then there's an email from John Contouris to me, which he sent on the 31st of October. And he was sending me again the interview and some links, which you can see when you get the teleprompter. And we put that up on YouTube right after the show airs. Now let's turn to Canada and the Committee on Monetary and Economic Reform. I've been working with Comer for quite some time. When I was attacked by scalar weapons on the 5th of August, although Comer is located in Toronto, they offered to have one of their members visit me in Nanaimo Regional Hospital. But I was released and flew back to Washington instead. As you can see, I'm making a full recovery. Last year, a member of Canada's Committee on Monetary Reform wrote this to me about what the true price of gold is. Quote, historically, an ounce of gold was measured by the cost of a fine man's hand-tailored wardrobe. And not to be sexist, in old times, this consisted of a fine hand-tailored suit, shirt, ties, shoes, top hat, and top coat. This is commonly known throughout as gold circles. Today, if we use the same analogy, using hand tailoring and fine materials, which represents a labor value, a man's hand-tailored suit in the US or UK is generally $2,000. Next, Today, a well-handmade shirt is $200, tie is $100, good handmade shoes are $400, top coat is $1,200, and a hat $200. That totals $4,100. Call it $4,000. Now, I'm not saying that the price of an ounce of gold should be $4,000, but I have asked UNCTAD to calculate the price of gold for us using a basket of goods and a basket of currencies. Somebody deleted an email that a member of Comer sent to me a couple of days ago. So I called up Comer's office and they sent me some of the materials I'm using on this segment. Comer opposes the European Union-Canada Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement. Comer is fighting the CETA in Canada's courts. I'm mentioning this now on DCTV, also at the request of someone from Ireland who made the following comment on a YouTube video of mine. Dear Karen, could you please bear witness to what they're up to in Ireland and EU in regard to the CETA deal being pushed through by our government, and maybe comment. And Comer is also fighting against the seigniorage that is stolen from Canada's people. The Canadian government is desperately stalling because it does not want Comer's case to be heard. The Bank of Canada was set up in 1935 in the wake of the Great Depression to provide interest-free loans to government to finance infrastructure investments. Projects like the St. Lawrence Seaway and the Trans-Canada Highway were funded this way, and the central bank also underwrote Canada's Second World War effort, as well as building of hospitals and universities. But in 1974, the central bank stopped providing interest-free loans to government so it could join the Bank for International Settlements, a kind of central bank of central banks. And a tweet that was angry about how Trudeau sold Canada downstream in 1974 showed up in my Twitter feed, and there's a link to that. You can see it when you look at the teleprompter. What is seigniorage? It's the difference between the value of money and the cost to produce it. In other words, it's the economic cost of producing a currency within a given economy or country. If the seigniorage is positive, then the government will make an economic profit. Negative seigniorage will result in an economic loss. Seigniorage may be counted as revenue for a government when the money that's created is worth more than it costs to produce it. This revenue is often used by governments to finance portions of their expenditures without having to collect taxes. If, for example, it costs the U.S. government 5 cents to produce a $1 bill, the seigniorage is 95 cents, or the difference between the two amounts. And seigniorage can also be negative if it costs money to produce coins. And this is often the case when you look at silver coins, for example. Canada is a member of the Commonwealth, and this means that Canada is in interregnum because we've already seen in earlier segments that Queen Elizabeth is not the true regent of the United Kingdom. This is because her grandfather was not legitimate. Queen Victoria actually had a husband and an older son.
Yes. I wanted to show you what the switchboard operator in the middle of the international financial system is doing. And when I say middle of the international financial system, above me is 189 ministers of finance and development, and the ones that I'm communicating with are you, and I'm bringing your messages to them and their messages to you. Now, let me show you what I tweeted You see that there's 24 retweets. I've also been putting this up on Facebook, and this goes out over the internet, and people know right now that this is a dialogue that's going on. Okay. This is a link to a letter that I sent to Wolfgang Struck, who is providing very interesting documentation, and that's what I wanted to show you on this screen capture, what he sent to me. And my response to him was on the 17th of October. I said, "Dear Wolfgang, when José Rizal," and José Rizal, we've been talking to you about him, he was the Superior General of the Jesuits at the end of World War II, and he deposited all of the assets that the Vatican had at the time into the global debt facility. That means all of humanity's wealth, and there's no question about what's in there, and that trust fund is now being administered by 189 ministers of finance, and of course you, humanity, are the beneficiaries. Okay, so here's my letter to Wolfgang. When José Rizal deposited the global debt facility into the World Bank, and this shows you the documents, and by the way, those documents were sent to me by somebody in the Philippines after I said that José Rizal was not the grandson of the royal family in the United Kingdom, that he was 100% Malay, and we were talking about that. Okay, Wolfgang has been giving me a lot of misinformation. And Wolfgang is also somebody who thought I was going to take the assets that belong to humanity and I was going to cut him a deal. And I told him that I wasn't going to cut him any deal, and that anybody who's been authorized to sign, and they're authorized by the ministers of finance, not anybody who wants to be somebody. It's got to be authorized by the ministers of finance. And my job is, I'm the lawyer for this Board of Governors. Okay, so let me read you the rest of this letter. We are on track for the global currency reset. Who is we? The Coalition for the Rule of Law, as predicted by the power transition model that came to the World Bank from the National War College in 2004. My latest correspondence with the BRICS is here. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And there's later correspondence, which I will be talking to you about later on in this broadcast. Okay. I sent you this email on September 7th, to which you never responded. Wolfgang, is this your new email address? I'm copying your old address. I'm not clear about many things, beginning with this story. And this is some of Wolfgang's lies. And then I said, and then plans to try and discount Treaty of Versailles bonds. That's $2 quadrillion, which offsets country debt. And Wolfgang thought that I was going to agree on behalf of humanity to sell these bonds back to the Fed. No, the Fed is bankrupt because of these bonds. All right. I'm not sure whether you would accept transaction by transaction authentication or 1/4 of 1% as in the monetary agreement. And these are the agreements that are going to be signed, which is going to put the gold that's in the global debt facility into humanity's currency. And I said anybody who's been authenticated by the Board of Governors is going to get 1/4 of 1%. And that amount, that percentage, is what was offered to Ferdinand Marcos by the Trilateral Commission. And Ferdinand Marcos, by the way, didn't take that fee because he wasn't going to betray humanity. But I thought that was a correct amount of the fee. And that's what I put in the monetary agreement. And I said, Izumi and I have already tried to help and lost over $1,000 in unused transportation costs. That's because Izumi sent Wolfgang $500, and I had already bought Wolfgang some tickets to come to Japan. I was in Japan in 2014, and this is before I knew that Wolfgang Struck was not going to work for humanity. We do not know what you're thinking about ASM. This is somebody who Wolfgang thinks should take over humanity's wealth. He's a person who is why there's a fight in the South China Sea. And I said that ASM has not been authenticated either. And then I told Wolfgang that I've been tweeting his correspondence. And I said, instead, you have asked me to enrich you, which I refused to do, and also tweeted. And I said, no to Committee of 300. And the Committee of 300, this is, you can see who is on that committee. The global currency reset that was approved by the Coalition for the Rule of Law on the Board of Governors for the benefit of humanity, and that will avoid World War III, that is tabled with the BRICS, with Japan, with Germany, with the rest of the Board of Governors, with the Postmaster General of the U.S., and I'll explain why it went to the Postmaster General, with the National Conference on Public Employee Retirement Systems, with the governors of the U.S., with the adjutants general, with the public, as informed through DCTV and the social media is, and those are the documents for the global currency reset. You have not responded to the deal that is on the table. As the overseer mandate trustee representing the voice and vote of the United States on the Board of Governors during this interregnum until the Constitution of 1789 goes back into effect, I am not considering any unauthorized deals by persons who have not been authenticated by the Board of Governors under paragraph 6 of the Bilateral Minefield Breakthrough Successor Agreement. And this is a link to that treaty, which was signed by President Truman and also by General Eisenhower in 1950. And this is what Wolfgang Struck sent me, and this is the reason that I'm reading you this. It was sent on the 16th of October. Dear Karen, attached there is a document that I will have to have researched in the World Bank, and this is the documentary proof. He's asking me to go outside of the Board of Governors and not to have the global currency reset with the way that José Rizal designed it. And here is the document that Wolfgang sent me. This is what I'm showing you. Trust certificate. Transfer in Philippines National Bank. And this is from Chase Manhattan Bank, Barclays World Bank, under general agreement. By authority of U.S. Federal and U.S. Treasury, given this clearance of ownership through TBM LSM 666, that is the global debt facility, in accordance with the law of ownership, Article 426, 427, and 428. This trust certificate of deposit is received from foreign remittance through BSP, that's the Philippines Central Bank, and transferred vault to vault and ledger to ledger, recorded in PNB, that's Philippines National Bank. That is the second largest bank in the Philippines. Special trust deposit dated August 11, 1974 as followed. And it's a trust account number and its maturity 2005. These assets were supposed to be released in 2005, and we have been fighting with the powers that be over these assets ever since. But they're still in the global debt facility and they still belong to all of humanity. Okay. This certificate of trust in United States dollar, therefore we certify that there have been foreign transmittal of fund derived from backup metal with 2.5% interest per annum. And let's see the signatures. It's signed by Father Jose Antonio Diaz, that is José Rizal, and Ferdinand Marcos. He was José Rizal's lawyer. Okay, now let me, there's another document that Wolfgang wanted you to see. That's Declaration of Ownership and the Trust Deposit. These are the monies that are still in the global debt facility. And so let me show you a couple of other links. All right, this is telling you how I've been communicating with you. This is the most viral tweet, and it says we are now in the global currency reset, and there's some links on these documents. I just put these documents back up. And you can see it's been retweeted 51 times, and it says, "Help, I've fallen and can't get up." This is gold from China and India under the paper dollar. Where the US dollar is not falling, because we are not Federal Reserve notes. We're something quite different. That's what this is all about. All right, let me show you another link. Very interesting. All right, this is a press release that was published on PressWire in 2014. This is when I was working in Japan. I went to Japan because of what I knew in the power transition model. And it says the Japan Credit Rating Agency said that the decision that the Global Coalition for the Rule of Law will ensure that the world's wealth benefits humankind. Okay, there was another press release which I wanted to show you, and I did a test drive, and it was up today, and then it was taken down, and I called PressWire to ask them why they took it down. And you can see here from this search engine where the link was to that press release, but they took it down. So when I clicked on it to try to show it to you, this time it didn't work. So I called up PressWire to ask them why they took that down, and they wouldn't put it back up. But I said it didn't matter. I was just going to tell everybody that PressWire was not a reputable press release. And let me show you what I got when I did the search engine. You can see here was one of the people that had that link. But if you see what's going on here, they're trying to crash the paper dollar. They're not letting us get credit for the gold that's in the global debt facility. They're trying to start World War III. And I wanted to show you one other link. This should wake you up if nothing else does. Where are we? Where's my cursor? Okay. All right. 23 countries bypass dollar. Swap lines to bypass dollar. Again, we are not talking about the dollar, because the dollar is really the gold that belongs to us in the global debt facility, is not the Federal Reserve. That's what we're talking about. Okay, that's the end of the demonstration.
Thank you for listening to another segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. Today's segment is showing you how I'm using DCTV and the Internet to be accountable to humanity during the global currency reset, and showing you proof that the assets in the global debt facility are really there. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis.